And the hope really is that they can take the money that they've saved and buy the new furniture that they need for their next house, or put it in a college fund, or take the anniversary trip that they've been wanting to take for 20 years. It's really just to help them achieve their goals, and that's where we feel like we can really provide some value.
Yeah, that's super interesting. This is the first time I've heard of, like you said, just a disruption in the pricing model of doing real estate. That just standard 3%. It just seems to be
Yeah.
where it's at, and it. Welcome to the J Wells CFO Show. I am your host, Jeremy Wells, and with me today is Matt Vaughn. Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you real quick and just tell us about who you are, what you're doing, and going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks, first of all, for having me. I've been really looking forward to being on here. So, originally from North Alabama, moved to Nashville 6.5 years ago and started working in supply chain. Uh, Started in freight forwarding and then moved more on the domestic side, working for Mars Pet Care. And just woke up one day and realized that I really wanted to do something different, where I felt like I could add value to people. It's always nice when you can add value to a company, but I really felt like I didn't have that social interaction that I was looking for, and I wanted to help people, and I thought that real estate would be a good way for me to do that.
Awesome, awesome. So, what particularly within real estate are you doing?
Yeah, so residential sales. There have been some commercial opportunities that have presented themselves, but at this point, it's not really a focus. I really enjoy working in residential sales and working with buyers. I enjoy listings as well, but there's something special about working with a first-time home buyer,
Hmm.
and being able to guide them through the process and get to the end of it, and have them in their first home. It's really cool.
Do you think that people, especially those first-time home buyers, do you think people have enough knowledge of what it takes to buy a house and what goes into buying a home when they get to that point? Or do we have enough knowledge as a consumer base to get into that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of material out there. For me, I think you could relate it to financial planning. There's a ton of books that you could read about financial planning, but there's something about having someone guide you through the process that provides an extra level of confidence. So yes, there is plenty of information, but what I found is that people still want someone to help them through that process, and that's where we come in.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what have you seen that tends to, make it more or less difficult for first-time home buyers? What are some things that tend to trip people up, and what are some things people
Yeah,
can do to set themselves up for a smoother process?
yeah, no, that's a great question. So I think first and foremost, everyone knows somebody who has bought and sold a home. And so those are typically the first people that they talk to. A lot of times it's their parents, but their parents may not have
Mm-hmm.
bought a home for 20 years or 30 years.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
I would say in general that real estate hasn't changed much over the last 30 years, but it has changed some. I mean, we have DocuSign now, which is fantastic because you don't have to go around and have people sign physical copies.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think that a lot of people get a lot of different messages, and so a lot of times they don't hear things about other costs associated with it. So, for example, a lot of people know that they need to bring a down payment. A lot of people even know that it's great if you can put 20% down. But what they don't know is you don't have to put 20% down. What they don't know is that you have to factor in closing costs, and depending on who your lender is, that's going to vary. They don't know that as a first-time home buyer, especially that, they don't know that you have to pay for the inspection out of pocket. That's another added cost. They don't know that, yes, you have to get an appraisal, but that's also something that oftentimes you have to pay out of pocket for. And so I think that in general, there's a lot more information, but there's still a lot of gaps.
Mm, gotcha. So when, someone comes in and says, what does that first conversation look like? Is it usually somebody that they've just got their heart set on a property, or they have no clue what they're looking for? And how do you get the ball rolling with
Yeah,
somebody that's a new client of yours?
yeah. Based on my experience, um, I think it's really important to have, what we would call a discovery call, where you just have, 10, 15 minutes where you can connect with them, introduce yourself, and find out exactly what they want to do. It's definitely not a sales pitch. It's just kind of an informational discovery call. And from there, what we like to do is have a buyer or listing consultation meeting. That could be virtual if they're remote, or I really enjoy in-person meetings, but we like to meet people where they're at. And so, I think we're in the service industry, and so I think meeting people where they're at and meeting their needs is priority. So that consultation call is key.
Gotcha. So what, you know, see a lot of realtors running around every, what is it?
Yeah,
What does an average day look like for a realtor?
yeah. So average day, it's going to depend on what your focus is. I think for residential sales, what I do specifically, uh, I like to get going and be in the office or have my first meeting at or before 8. I really like to get started early, and from that may be a coffee meeting with a potential client or breakfast. I love pancakes, so those are always fun.
Yeah.
Um, but sometimes too, I like to meet with partners, vendors, whether it's a lender. I had a lender meeting this morning, and we're currently working on hosting a whiskey tasting. And
Ooh.
so it's one of my passions, and I like to share that with people. And so I've incorporated that into my business. And then, after my morning meetings, then I'll go into the office, follow up with some other clients, do more event planning, and then typically I'll have a lunch appointment. And then in the afternoons, I like to do more lead generation calling, or what a lot of people know is cold calling, and just following up with online leads. It was a really cool experience the other day. I think I'd called about 30 people
Hmm.
and talked to this lady named Sherry, and she just kind of opened up to me. And she said, well, first of all, that doesn't happen super often. Most people aren't
Yeah.
available, and that's okay. But Sherry was in a very unique situation. She realized that she really needed to downsize. She was moving into the next phase of her life, but had gotten taken advantage of by a contractor. And it was one of those moments where she really needs to move on, but she's not sure how to do it. And so there's a few things that she's still trying to get done, but we have the opportunity to come alongside her and help her get to where she needs to be. And so that was really cool. And I think that's one thing that you miss out on when you don't have cold calling as a part of your process. It's a great way to talk to and meet new people. Sure, there are always going to be people that don't want to talk to you, that say, remove me from your list, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But every now and then you get a Sherry, and it's just really rewarding to be able to come alongside those people and help them.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think, in 2020, with so many different lead generation strategies out there. It always seems,
Yeah.
I look through my Facebook profile and I've got a million sponsored posts from people that want to help me
Yeah.
with my lead gen and all
Yep.
this kind of stuff. And really it just comes down to you just have to cast a wide net.
Yeah.
When it comes to actually serving clients, it's quality over quantity. But when it comes
Yeah.
to finding those people, it's still very much a matter of quantity, just getting
It,
out there to as
yeah.
many people as you can.
It is. And, you have to have thick skin. Like you just do. I think scripting can kind of help you overcome some of the challenges. And it doesn't mean that it's not genuine. It just helps you guide the conversation. And so, a lot of people don't want to do that, but it does work. And so it doesn't have to be the only thing that you do. It just needs to be a part of what you do. I think one of the things that I found, so for context, I've had my license for about a year, actually a little over a year. Went full time back in April of last year, and it's been really good. Definitely have had its challenges, but it's been good. And my main focus is I work my network, but eventually you're going to run through your network, and
Yep.
you need to continually add people to your network if you want to build a good referrals
Yeah.
based business, which anyone in this industry should want to build a referrals based business.
Yeah. Yeah. Only so long before you run out of family and friends and you've got to start talking to strangers.
You got to, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. 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 Good deal. Good deal. So, you brought up challenges. What are some of the challenges, after a year of, running almost a year of running real estate full time? What are some of the, one or two of the biggest challenges, and how have you taken on those
Sure.
challenges?
Sure. So the largest challenge is what we just discussed, and that's lead generation.
Yep.
Anyone that gets
Right.
into the business, um, most brokerages aren't going to be feeding you leads, and that's really difficult,
Mm.
because you've really got to get out there and you've got to meet people, and whether it's financial planning or whether it's real estate, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to build out your network and write down all the people that you know. And what I do is, and how I worked through that challenge, is I just started talking to the people that I know and letting
Mm.
people know that what I do now is real estate. I would say that's probably the second biggest challenge, is overcoming people's perception of what I do and why I do it. And so before it was, oh, well, Matt does supply chain, and yeah, that's what I did, but that's not who I am.
Yeah.
And sometimes now people still see me as Matt in supply chain. It just takes time, and that's the
Yeah.
thing with real estate. You really have to be patient. And I would say, it's the same for financial planning too. Any kind of industry that's built on sales and providing, a service for people, you just have to be patient, and you have to keep working at it. And it's hard. Like it's not a get rich quick scheme.
Yeah.
If you're looking for an industry that you can work as little as possible and make the most amount of money as possible in the shortest amount of time, real estate is not for you. And
Right.
so,
Right.
like, you have to hustle, and you have to work hard. And so, it's tempting some days to start at 10. But if you really want to make it, like, you need to get up early, and you need to get started and get going.
Yeah, 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 absolutely, absolutely. It's interesting because I came in to this field from a profession that was not based on sales at all.
Yeah.
It was not even it was public sector. It wasn't even private sector, right? So
Yeah.
it really wasn't much of a business field. And then I came into this, and there's such a negative connotation out there about sales and about
Yeah.
networking and lead generation, all these different kinds of
Yeah.
terms, and then you get into the field to help people, and the only
Yep.
way you can help people is to let people know that you're there to help them, right? So you
Yep.
have to get over that initial negative connotation. You have to get over that fear that
Yeah.
people are just going to see you as a salesman, and
Yep.
actually get out there and tell people, this is what I do, here's how I can help you.
Well, and I think too, specifically with real estate, you have a lot of people who do it part time,
Mm-hmm.
and the reality is people always ask me this question: Can you do real estate part time? Yes, of course you can do it part time.
Yeah.
Um, what people don't ask me very often is, should I do it part time? And I would say no,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
uh, it's about repetitions. If you go to the gym one day a week, you're not going to be really good at going to the gym. You're not going to be really fit. If you go to the gym 5 or 6 days a week and you're doing it all the time and you're dieting, then guess what? You're going to be really good at going to the
Yeah.
gym. You're going to be really fit. And
Yeah.
I think real
Yeah.
estate works the same way. Like, you have to do it often if you're going to be good at it. And the reality is that our clients deserve that. And so
Yeah.
always encourage people, hey, if you want to do it part-time, it's possible, but you should really do it full-time if this is what you want to do. There's plenty of other
Yeah.
ways that you can
Yeah.
make side money.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I know just from the business side of things that it's really quick and easy to tell, at least on paper,
Yeah.
whether somebody is really committed to this or
Yeah.
not, and
Yeah.
the ones that are committed, it takes some time, right? It takes some
It
time to build
does.
that up. And, your first year or two, you're not going to sell 7 figures worth of property, but you
Yeah.
are going to start building up your network. You're going to start building up that referral base. You're going to be
Yeah.
doing those kinds of things. And at some point you'll be able to cash in on that. If you're putting in, like you say, if you're putting in the full time that it
Right.
takes to start building all that up. If people see you
Yeah.
as part-time, they're going to treat you as part-time, and they're not
Yeah.
going to refer business to you. They're not going
Yeah.
to take you seriously. They're not going to think of
Yeah.
you first when they want to put their house up for sale or when they start
Right.
looking for a house.
Right. Well, I think too, it's, if you want to build a good business and you want to build a good referrals based business and you want to succeed, you have to put other people's needs in front of your own, and
Yeah.
trust that when you take care of other people, that they're going to take care of you. And I think maybe sometimes that's where the negative connotation with realtors comes from, is that people think that we're just trying to get to the next transaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in a lot of, and sometimes, yeah,
Yeah.
it's if you want to be successful, you need to close transactions.
Right.
But like, you can't go into it thinking that you're going to come out in 3 years making $600,000,
Yeah.
and you're going to do whatever it takes to get
Right.
there at the expense of other people. Like, that's just no way to do business.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And you said at closing transactions, right? It's 30 days to closing. We shake hands, we take a picture, and then we're done. But, you actually start moving into that house, and,
Yeah.
stuff that the inspector didn't find, stuff that the appraiser didn't see, all those
Yeah.
kinds of things that, a week after you move in and things start to settle,
Yeah.
and suddenly you realize there is a leak somewhere, or the
Yep.
AC isn't, as new as you thought it was, and all these kinds of things. And,
Right.
especially if you're new to the area, who are you going to call, right? That is supposed to know all these people for you. It's going to be the realtor.
Yep. 100%. And the
Yeah.
thing is, like, you have to be available. Like, your job doesn't end when the papers are signed. You
Yeah.
you have to continue to be available and do what you can to help people. And that's how you provide a level of service that people want to refer you to.
Yeah. I work exactly the same way. I'm a tax professional.
Yeah.
My work for you doesn't end on April 15th,
Yeah.
because April, we get your tax return for last year done. That's great. But do you have questions about this year? Are there steps that we can do in the next 6 months to put you in a better position for next year when we
Yeah.
do this year's tax return? And so these kinds of, ongoing, seeing the relationship as ongoing, not just getting to the finish line, right? But
Yeah.
it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's almost a continual process, right? Because these issues are going to
Yeah.
keep coming up, and transitioning from, like you're saying, especially with first time home buyers. When we bought our first house, we had no clue. We had no clue what we were doing, and so we leaned
Yeah.
on our realtor for weeks after that. And it's not even that you need repairmen, you need plumbers and that kind of stuff. It's just, just because you got through closing doesn't mean, okay, so when is our first mortgage payment due? When, how do we make sure that the home insurance is set up properly? Do we need the home warranties that we're getting all this, mail about?
Yeah.
What do we do with all this stuff?
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, for me, I may not have answers to, when your first mortgage payment is, or, uh, or things like that. But what I will know is that you need to talk to your lender, and I can
Right.
say, hey, I would call Mike, because Mike's going to be able to help you with that. Sometimes just having the guidance, I think, is really what we're here for.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree 100%. And I'm really excited for this year, because we're actually going to be offering a flat rate price on listings.
Really?
And so, I think nowadays that the industry is changing. You have people like, non-real estate companies like Amazon, who partner with Realogy. Um, you've got a lot of people who see the opportunity for disruption in this industry, because it's been largely unchanged for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Consumers now, because of technology, have so much more at their fingertips. Most people now find their own house. I can't tell you, like, I spend a lot of time looking for houses for clients, and a lot of the deals that I've closed, they actually found the house. It wasn't because I wasn't looking. It was, we were looking at different times. And so,
Yeah.
The service that we provide, has changed.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
we never want our value to be tied, to the equity that someone has in their house. We want it to be tied to the service that we provide. And so, what we've done is we've put together 4 pricing options, and people can choose, what service option works best for them. And it's going to save people a lot of money. Like, aside from the service that we provide, we will, what's the best way to add value to someone? And that's to save them money.
Yeah.
And so we think that we've got an offering that's really going to be able to change people's lives, and we're really excited about it.
That is super interesting. Yeah, because it's one of those things where there is some lack of transparency in terms of, on the consumer side, right? You like I said, it's 30 days of holding your fingers crossed, hoping you get to closing and everything at closing goes well, and then they put this 6-inch stack of paperwork down, and they tell you to sign all, flip a few pages, sign here, flip a few pages, initial here, and you have no idea what any of this means. And then all of a sudden it's, okay, here's how much you need to write the check for. And there's no idea where these numbers came from, right? And I know, you get the HUD-1 statement that breaks it all down for you, but when you're in the room and you spent 30 days hoping this thing works out, and all you want to do is get the keys and move on, or hand over the keys and move on, all that kind of just detailed information just goes by the wayside. And so, there is a lack of transparency there. And it sounds like, when you simplify the cost, when you simplify the way we calculate that cost, it adds transparency to it. It makes it easier. It should make it easier to accept that deal.
Yeah. And the way that the offering works, so it's on the list side. And so we're going to be launching that March 1st. And typically it's, industry standard has been, between 5 and 6% of whatever the sales price is what you pay out in commission. You still have the buy side, but that's negotiable. It's really up to the seller what they're going to offer the buyer's agent.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we always encourage people, hey, 3% is industry standard, but it's up to you what you want to offer. However, the listing fee for this is where we really have the opportunity to save you a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so the feedback that we've gotten so far has been really positive. I don't know anyone that doesn't want to save money. And
Right.
and the hope really is that they can take the money that they've saved and buy the new furniture that they need for their next house, or put it in a college fund, or take the anniversary trip that they've been wanting to take for 20 years. It's really just to help them achieve their goals, and that's where we feel like we can really provide some value.
Yeah, that's super interesting. This is the first time I've heard of, like you said, just a disruption in the pricing model of doing real estate. That just standard 3%. It just seems to be
Yeah,
where it's at. And you can only control your side. You can't control the other side. But to change it up on one side maybe opens up the gate for
yeah,
producing some change on the other side too. And
yeah,
then we can start to see a shakeup in the way real
yeah,
estate is done.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say our goal as a company is that we want to be able to save 10,000 families $100 million within the
Mm,
next 5 years.
wow. Wow.
And
I love that stretch goal.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's
Absolutely.
just it's client centric,
Yeah.
and I think for a long time the industry's been agent centric, and it's time for a change. We need to work for people, not for ourselves.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, being an accountant, if I can't cause my clients to go broke trying to afford my services, right?
Yeah,
I have to compare, what it's going to, what's a reasonable rate of return for me to do this work. But I've also got to
yeah,
look at, what value am I bringing to the client in terms of,
right,
financial return. If I'm saving a client X amount in taxes, then
yeah,
it's only fair that I only think of my value as some portion of that, not some number that has nothing to do with it. And so I've
yeah.
got to look at what's the relationship between the value I'm actually bringing to the client and what's the value of doing this service to me.
Yeah, and it has to be mutually beneficial
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Absolutely. No, you touched on technology, and obviously this is something that, I mean, every realtor out there should be aware of it if they're not already. But, we do have, I mean, obviously Zillow, I mean, my wife loves spending free time looking at everything that's available on Zillow. But,
Yeah,
every now and then she'll see something, she might be a little interested in it, she just wants some more information, and it's still, you've got to verify some of these things. Is
yeah,
this the right number for the HOA dues? Can this be right?
right, right.
Is this mortgage calculator really accurate?
Yeah,
I are these pictures? I can't really get a tell of how the house actually looks and feels. Can we go see
yeah,
inside the house? There's still those things that that a website will never be able to replace. That a realtor
yeah,
can do for you.
yeah. 100%,
Yeah.
100%. But it's going to be interesting. I think the way that real estate's done is going to be drastically different over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. And in accounting we have the exact same thing, right? I mean, a lot of doing tax returns is data entry. A lot of doing bookkeeping is applying rules to transactions that a computer can learn. But at the same
Yeah,
point, there is a level of you still need a human who understands the field, understands how business
yeah.
works, that's looking over this, that's reviewing this. And so there's still very much room for a human element in it.
Sure, sure,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny as different generations age. I'm
Yeah.
30. I'll be
Yeah.
31 this year, and it's incredible to see the speed at which technology is changing.
Yeah.
I remember when the internet didn't exist,
Yeah.
and now we have smartphones, and those are changing, and the way that kids today interact with technology is incredible. And so I really believe that technology is going to continue to
Yeah.
change the landscape of how
Yeah.
we do business.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's gonna be really interesting, and I think you're right. I think that a lot of fields out there are doing what they can to
Yeah.
either disrupt or get ahead of the disruption, the inevitable disruption. And real
Yeah.
estate seems to be a little resistant to that. Real estate seems
Yeah.
to be less willing to say, let's jump out ahead of this,
Yeah.
and it seems more of like a let's just hope it doesn't hurt us as bad as it could, right?
Yeah, well, and it's fairly fragmented too. I mean,
Yeah.
with the way real estate's done in Nashville isn't the same way that it's done in
Hmm.
uh, Las Vegas, and it's not the same way that it's done in Jacksonville, Florida.
Interesting.
Yeah, maybe the process as a whole is really similar, but I mean, states have a say in
Yeah.
what
Right.
you can and can't do,
Interesting.
and so yeah, I mean that's the other side of it that I'll be interested to see how that changes.
Right. The legal regulations and all that kind
Yeah,
of thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
from state to state,
Right.
and so
I
every
mean, can
market's a
Amazon
little
sell me
different.
a house? Right. Can Amazon sell me a house? Is that right? As
Yeah,
far as the regulations, as far, is Amazon going to take care of the appraisal and the inspection for me? All these different
yeah,
kinds of things. Like it's just going to be interesting to see how all that shakes out.
yeah, 100%, man, 100%.
Yeah. All right, Matt. Well, it's been great. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on here. So
Yeah,
if right at the end here, if somebody is talking about the future of the field here, if somebody's thinking about getting into real estate today, what's your biggest recommendation to them? Where would you tell them to go to get started?
yeah. I think the first piece of advice that I would give someone is it's going to be hard. And like we talked about, if you're looking to get rich quick, like this is not for you.
Yeah.
Um, Secondly, I would say you need to save about 6 months worth of expenses before you jump in, because you need to be full time, and you're probably not going to close your first deal until you're about 6 months in. Everyone's typically on average about 3 to 6 months out. People who are actually looking to buy a house,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they go through a discovery phase. And I have a client right now. We've been looking for. I think we had our first conversation back in May of last year, and it just takes time because everyone's in a different season of life.
Yeah.
And so you need to try and plan for that. That's the other thing. Have a plan.
Yeah.
Don't just go into it without one. Don't get sick of your job one day and decide, no, I'm done. I quit. I'm going to go do real estate, because you'll be in for a rude awakening. Like it's challenging. And I think lastly is just find a mentor. Uh, Find a brokerage that is going to support you, and a broker who is available, who's going to be invested in seeing you grow. Any good broker is going to want to see you succeed, because that's how they succeed. And at the end of the day, people need to be able to experience a consistent level of service, and that only happens through having good leadership and being educated and being an expert at what you do, and that just takes time. And so I guess that's the last thing: be patient.
Yeah. Right.
Because
Absolutely.
it's going to take time.
Yeah. Yeah. Time and money. Look,
Yeah,
need a
man.
little bit of both. Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good deal. Matt, if listeners want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah. So send me an email. My email address is mvaughn@scoutrealty.com. So feel free to shoot me an email anytime. I'd love to talk to you.
Gotcha. And we'll have that in the description and the show notes for anybody that wants to get in touch with Matt. Matt, thank you so much for being on here today. Really appreciate it. A lot of good stuff here. Really looking forward to seeing how things shake out for both you and for the field of real estate as a whole.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah, me
said,
too, man.
in that 5 to 10 year time frame, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
For sure. Thanks for having me on. Have a great one.
Absolutely. You too. Thank you.
All right. See you, man.